Welcome in. Game Time Decisions is live on SportsGrid. It is a Monday night, and I am Kevin Walsh with you for the next 2 hours as we embark on a big-time week here. College basketball world, NBA, we've got some ice action to get to, which Joe Madden will help us with. We're going to have Coach James Young in the fold. Joe Lisi stops by. We have finally been given the outright markets in the college football power conferences, which will give us a bit of insight in who could be in the college football playoff this upcoming season. And it's never too early to talk a little ball. Excited to go through all of that here over the next 2 hours. But since it's Monday, I'm going to send out the reminder now. I'm going to send it out all week long. The upcoming schedule for Game Time Decisions is Monday through Friday. Now, Wednesdays and Friday, Joe Ranieri has you covered right here on the grid. On Saturdays and Sundays, you are also getting Game Time Decisions from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. I will be in the chair with you getting set for the major college basketball slates, big-time NBA action, and anything else that comes in between. And eventually, we will be breaking down full Major League Baseball weekend cards. Excited for it all, and it starts this week right here on SportsGrid. Let's open it up. Let's look at some of the weekend items that we would have been previewing, but instead today we are taking in and the results. And we go to the association first. I think the four big games are what you see here. The Celtics are off to a great start, no doubt about it, since the All-Star break. Albeit 2 games, this team looks as good as ever. I will say, though, the Jason Tatum MVP nonsense has come and gone appropriately. Please keep him far away from that conversation. Radio audience in the mix, appreciate having you here with us on the grid. Sirius XM channel 159. I'm Kevin Walsh with you. It is Game Time Decisions. When you take a look, we had Milwaukee and Philadelphia go on Sunday. The Bucks 2-0 since the break. They win in Milwaukee with an incredible third quarter. They dominate the Sixers on Sunday. An incredible start for our updated win total and more of what we were expecting from the Bucks regular season-wise with Doc Rivers. Now we wait and see. Do we start to get a bit of overreaction in the market that suggests the Bucks are a high-level contender? I'll remain hesitant on that with Doc as their head coach, but the regular season results come in. We also have an updated win total on the Phoenix Suns over 48.5, and they got one that they absolutely needed. They came out of the break. They lost to Dallas, MVP stuff from Luka Doncic in that game, and then lost on the second leg of a back-to-back in Houston despite a fourth-quarter lead over those Rockets. So they needed this one against the Lakers, and they got it. These are 2 teams battling right now in the Western Conference when you talk about that play-in. And also the Golden State Warriors are battling. Now, the Warriors are playing good ball, and the markets are starting to really respect Golden State. They were booked as a 2-point favorite in that basketball game. So you're starting, or a 2-point dog. It was a short line, certainly, against the Denver Nuggets. You were seeing the books give Golden State their due. But Nikola Jokic certainly getting a lot more respect right now in the odds place, growing as the favorite to win another MVP trophy. It would be his 3rd. He had 14 rebounds and 14 assists in 3 consecutive games, obviously all triple-doubles. He scored 32 points against the Warriors with 16 boards and 16 assists. He has been on fire since the All-Star break, and right now I am not betting against Jokic in that market. I'm not ready to lay the minus money, but by the time I am, it very well could be too late, and it's something we'll keep our eyes on here on Game Time Decisions. Let's throw it to the college basketball ranks, another 4-pack of really big games that we saw play out. UConn bounced back in a major way against Villanova. Give them credit there. Thought it might have been a nice spot for the Wildcats, and it was not. Also in the Big East, do give credit to Rick Pitino and St. John's taking down Creighton, one that team absolutely needed as they are on the bubble. But the Huskies no longer the 1 seed. And that's because that's the Houston Cougars now who jump over the Baylor Bears. And I'm fine with that. I think it's fluid. I think UConn, though, going from unanimous number 1 to a loss to Creighton, knocking them down to 3 is a bit preposterous. It looks a little silly. But it is what it is at the end of the day. It's a reactionary poll, and we know that. For Houston, though, in their first season in the Big 12. They're going to win that regular season trophy, and you got to give them a ton of credit for that. Kentucky got an awesome win over Alabama, 117, preposterous. It was the highest scoring game in the first half of an SEC game all year long, and it was even higher scoring in the second half. It's a show of what these teams can do offensively, but it's also why both teams have their concerns because of the defensive lacking that we still see from them. And then quickly here, Wake Forest Duke, far more conversation about the court storming for people. Pretty simple. Wake Forest was booked as a favorite. You don't storm the court when you're a favorite. All right? We put that rule in, we're going to get a lot less court storming. It'll fix the whole deal, and that's where I land on the situation. Let's move forward here to tonight's slate and NBA and college. Again, we're going to hit the NHL with Joe Madden, who will be here at 6:25, and some updated college football markets for you as well. Toronto goes to Indy, catching points from the Pacers, but the Pacers are on the second leg of a back-to-back. Just played the Dallas Mavericks last night. It was blowout style, but it is a tricky spot for them. Detroit catches a ton from the New York Knicks in this game. A lot of Jalen Brunson boosts in the market, so he will be key for a lot of prop players here. Brooklyn and Memphis, the Nets, despite being terrible, are laying a short number against the Grizz. Ben Simmons listed as questionable in this team. This is a dead team walking in the Brooklyn Nets. It doesn't mean they can't win tonight, but it is a shame to see where this team was through their first 15 games with a healthy Ben Simmons and to see where they are now. It is a nightmare scenario for the Nets. 3 consecutive games, they've not hit 100 points. Miami, Band-Aid squad goes out there against Sacramento. No Rozier, no Hero, injuries. No Jimmy Butler, no Jovic because of suspensions there. Bam Adebayo will step up. We'll talk more about that in a moment. College basketball tonight, 2 ranked spots here. We've got UNC laying a bunch to the Tar Heels, 14.5. This is a Miami team that is in a tough spot overall. We know it well. Tried to back them the other week against the Duke Blue Devils and got smashed. TCU laying one of the lines we're so accustomed to all season long in college basketball. Unranked, home favorite, laying 2.5. But are you comfortable betting on the Baylor Bears losing 2 in a row and being swept by the Horned Frogs? It's tough for me. I'm leaning Baylor, but I'm on a Baylor player prop. It's my favorite bet on the board tonight. We'll hit that in the card in just 5 minutes' time. But let's put a quick pick on the board here, and it's a little bit of plus money. It's plus 220 on Cam Thomas of the Brooklyn Nets to give us 25 plus points. The reason we elevate, we don't do this all the time, but I think it is worthwhile here tonight. And I'll give you the simple version of it. We'll expand in a moment. But Cam Thomas's points prop is 20.5. He has gone over that 20 times this season. He has scored 25 or more in 17 of the 20 games. When Cam Thomas has it going on, he absolutely goes off, and it's what we're looking for tonight against Memphis. We'll hit the full card next. It's Game Time Decisions on a Monday night.
Johnny's a 19-point lead late in the opening half, only to squander that lead. Hall ball under Shaheen Holloway coming all the way back.
All these guards start jacking up shots, and then Soriano doesn't get the ball. Hey, Rick, how about stop throwing your kids under the bus and get your big man the ball, your best player, play inside out like you were doing earlier in the game, and you probably would have won.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
We just watched the final seconds of Illinois and Penn State, and by Dave's reaction, you think you know what happened there. How about that, Dave? How about that?
We're off the rundown. Sorry. Storm the court. You beat the 12th team in the country. That's fine. Second best in the Big Ten. That's fine. We are Penn State. Look at the crew jumping. This is so much fun.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
It felt during the year that there was a little bit of disconnect with Wilks and Kyle Shanahan. The total points allowed by Steve Wilks' defense the last 3 years before this, head coach for the Cardinals, they gave up the 26th most points. Defensive coordinator for the Browns, 20th most points. And then Carolina, they gave up the 19th most points.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid. Live with you, it is Game Time Decisions on a Monday night. Kevin Walsh here in the saddle. We've got two ranked college games that we'll begin with, and our action in UNC Miami. Look, sometimes you try and outsmart everyone, right? Off the beaten path plays. You guys know me. I love my bounce back spots. We've got one of those, but this is a pretty straightforward pick here. It's RJ Davis over 19.5 points. UNC's leading scorer being booked at a number that he is often over, averages 21 a game. I did drop this down to minus 130. His 20.5 is like minus 106, which is fine if you want to play that. I think he could absolutely go off tonight. 30-plus points is in range for RJ Davis. But this is, first of all, the game he last played was against Virginia, who was not just the 9th defense in college basketball, but dead last in tempo. So playing anyone that is not Virginia, unless for some reason you had to play Houston in the next game, is going to feel like it's completely different basketball. And RJ Davis in that game was atrocious. 1 of 14 from the field, 1 of 8 from 3. Oh, by the way, they won that game by 10. Virginia stinks. Keep them out of the tournament. Please, nobody needs to waste time with this team losing in the first round again. But RJ Davis has now, in 3 consecutive games, when he did not score 20 the game prior, has bounced back for 20-plus. He's 6-3 overall in this bounce-back spot. He's playing a Miami team he just scored 25 against 2 weeks ago, who ranks 135th defensively and 120th in tempo. Again, it is essentially a different universe that RJ Davis is stepping into, coming off of a game at Virginia. By the way, love this spot for RJ Davis. As far as the game goes between TCU and Baylor, I was really interested in some Jacoby Walter props. He had a great game against the Houston Cougars despite the loss. Arguably, his best game in Big 12 play so far. The thing for Jacoby Walter, who's going to be a lottery pick likely, leaving Baylor in his one-and-done season, he has been very inefficient for this basketball team. If you look at the 3 games leading up to, I mean, you don't even have to go, let's look at his last 7 games prior to that one, okay? Field goal percentage, 25%, 20%, 22%, 42%, 38%, 35, 33, and then goes out there and against Houston goes 54% from the field. That is awesome. And there's a part of me that wants to bet his points over the 14.5 and keep it going. While TCU is good defensively, they play much quicker than Houston, and maybe Jacoby Walter's in a rhythm. However, as I was looking through his points prop, the rebounds plus assist number, which I know is not available to every single sportsbook, but it is out there, of 6.5 caught my attention because Jacoby Walter has missed this in 3 consecutive games. Pretty comfortably, too. Last game out, 4 rebounds and no assists. Game before that, 3 rebounds, no assists. And then against West Virginia, whole bunch of nothing. No rebounds, 1 assist. But again, this is a good spot for me because he has never missed this in 4 straight throughout this season and rarely even misses it in 2 straight. And the fact that we have back-to-back games for him without an assist is a good sign because the last time that happened, he had a 3-assist game, which would get us nearly halfway home on this prop. He was also in conference plays, played 14 games in the Big 12 so far. He was 8-3 over a 6.5 rebound plus assist number prior to this 3-game losing streak. So he's still 8-6 over this number, which is certainly better than 50%. But again, he was 8-3 over this prop prior to this little slide here. So Jacoby Walter is my favorite bet on tonight's board over the rebounds plus assists against TCU. Let's go to the NBA. So we mentioned Cam Thomas, just to ice it in a little bit more here. He scored 25 plus in 6 of his last 12 games, and 12 games ago is when he started to be back in the starting lineup and is in the starting lineup every single game. So that's a 50% hit rate. We're getting plus 220 for 25 plus, which is 31.3% implied probability. And I'll take that and I'll use that when it feels right. Sometimes I prefer to play the straight wager, right? His points prop's 20.5. He's going to score 25, he's going to score 20.5. I'll take that. Just in case he lands 21, 2, 3, or 4. But Cam Thomas is a different spot here. He has 20 games this season of over 20.5. He has landed 20 a good amount of times. Ironically enough, I would not play his 20.5. I would either pay juice for 20 plus, or I'm going to do what I'm doing here and take the plus money on the 25 plus at plus 220. Because in the 20 games where he has gone over 20.5 points, 17 of them he has scored 25 plus, which is obviously a massive, massive hit rate there for Cam Thomas, and that's what I'm looking for on a plus 220 ticket. 3 consecutive games where he has missed this prop, where he's actually missed 20 plus points, so he's due to bounce back in a major way. Bam Adebayo is in a clear and obvious give me all the workload spot. No Jimmy Butler, no Tyler Hero. It does go beyond that, though. Terry Rozier out. Backup center Thomas Bryant is out. Nikola Jovic is out as well. You just want to start adding to the list. You can. So this is a spot where Bam Adebayo has to do a little bit of everything. So without even diving into it, the bet makes sense. But we can dive into it. 3 times this year, Bam has played without both Jimmy Butler and Tyler Hero, both out. Against Atlanta, 26 points, 17 rebounds, 4 assists. Well over. Against Milwaukee, 31 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists. Again, well over. And against the Orlando Magic, 21 points, 11 rebounds, 7 assists. That is an average of 26 points, 12.7 boards, and 5.3 assists. He is averaging 44 points, rebounds, and assists in that 3-game sample size, completely matching up with what I would expect. And again, that's just in games that Jimmy and Tyler are out. The argument against this bet would be Miami's going to get blown out tonight because they have such little going for them, right? Missing Terry Rozier. 2 of these games Kyle Lowry played in, right? They're missing their pure point guard here. The fact that they don't have a backup big and Thomas Bryant available, they're missing a lot, no doubt. But they actually won 2 of these 3 games where Bam was basically out here by himself. I understand Sacramento is a 7.5 point favorite and playing good hoop, but Sacramento is on the second leg of a back-to-back. Hard to extend on a team like that. Plus, they're coming off a great win in LA against the Clippers last night. So I actually would be betting Miami to cover, which makes me feel confident then that they're going to need to get a great game out of Bam, and that Bam's going to get a full workload here tonight against the Sacramento Kings. So give me his over 37.5 PRA. One other thing I want to mention here on tonight's NBA board is Benedict Mathurin. So Benny Math has come out of the All-Star break playing huge minutes. It's only 2 games, but he's playing huge minutes. 35 and 33 minutes in the 2 games since the break. And that is not common. Those are now his 10th and 11th games on the year where he has exceeded 31-plus minutes. And if you look at his hit rate on certain props in those, there's a lot of things that shine. There were two specific markets that I was interested in, which was over 6.5 rebounds plus assists, which he has gone over in 9 of 11 games where he played 31 or more minutes, averaging 6.4 rebounds and 3 assists, so 9.4 rebounds plus assists for Benedict Mathurin, which would have been a nice look. He also is now over half a steals, booked at minus 150. In 10 of the 11 games that he's played 31 or more minutes, he has a steal. My worry is Benedict Mathurin here and the Pacers are on the second leg of the back-to-back, and what do the minutes look like for Mathurin in that situation? Now, we're talking about a 21-year-old sophomore here. He should be able to handle it just fine, but this is a new major increase in minutes for Benedict Mathurin, so it makes me a little hesitant, especially the steals market being minus 150. So I'm going to lay back, but he's definitely someone I'm keeping my eye on tonight. I think you could certainly put his decreased PRA in parlays if you'd like, or if you want to take a chance, climb the ladder in that market. We go to the ice with Joe Madden next year on Game Time Decisions.
Introducing Sports Injury Central's new feature, the Injury Edge, your NFL matchup cheat sheet. See all the significant injury mismatches broken down by offense and defense to highlight where the advantages lie. All for only $2.99 a week. How can you even consider making a bet or setting your fantasy lineup without knowing the injury mismatches? Go to sixscore.com today and get this week's Injury Edge.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Just watched the final seconds of Illinois and Penn State, and by Dave's reaction, you think you know what happened there. How about that, Dave? How about that?
We're off the rundown. Sorry. Storm the court. You beat the 12 team in the country. That's fine. Second best in the Big Ten. That's fine. We are Penn State. Look at the crew jumping. This is so much fun.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
And Tibbs can find a way to get the Knicks rolling again as everybody comes back, folks. They are going to shoot up the Eastern Conference standings. There are 33 wins. I think the Knicks have a chance to maybe, folks, ready? You think I'm crazy? They could get all the way to 2. It is not out of the question.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell Coast to Coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from 3 on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not one, but 2 coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage Late
Sort of
Night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on sports.
Game Time Decisions live with you here on a Monday night. We're now bringing in Joe Madden to help us here on this NHL board. Joe, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. We got a light slate tonight, but lots of opportunities to jump in on some dogs tonight that I'm liking.
Yeah, 4 games here for us to fly through, so I'm excited to make it happen. We'll start it off in Washington with the Capitals as a home dog against the Ottawa Senators. I know Washington has been playing a bit better. How are you looking to back either side in this game?
Washington has been playing better, but my concern here is in net. Kemper is getting the start, and he's just not a goaltender that I've been able to trust as of late. We look at the Ottawa Senators, and they've been playing so phenomenally strong. They've won their last 2. They were able to get that nice big shootout win versus Vegas in their last one out, winning that 4-3. I think this team is too hot right now, and the books do too. So you're going to have to lay juice with the Ottawa Senators on the road. Normally not a situation I love to do, but I do think you're still getting value with them here at -137 over the Washington Capitals. The Capitals kind of in a hard spot here. They played 2 games on the road, returning home, and they're back out on the road tomorrow versus the Detroit Red Wings. So I don't like this scheduling spot for them. I do think the Ottawa Senators will be able to do enough to be able to get this win in this game, but I think you've got to look at a couple goal scorers as well. Ovechkin's been phenomenally strong versus the Ottawa Senators in his career. He's had 9 goals and 6 assists in 10 games versus the Senators. And then looking at him for the anytime goals, +145, and Chabot on the other side is +420. He's an offensive defenseman out here for the Ottawa Senators. He's been phenomenally strong as of late in the past 3 games. He does have 3 goals and 2 assists out there. So I think looking at him at +420, so much value. You could go with a safer route in Josh Norris at +450, but I think Chabot continues to roll hot tonight.
All right, there you go. Getting a lot of plus money on the board for that game, which we absolutely love to see. Total booked right now at 6.5 between Washington and Ottawa. Let's go to the Stars Islanders game here, Joe. -160, give or take, on Dallas here as a home favorite. Another total booked at 6.5 tonight. Where do you see some value in this game?
Okay, the value is all on the Islanders. I know they're on the road here, and we've been kind of up and down under Patrick Waugh. They've gone 4-5-3 under him, but I look at the Dallas Stars, and this is not a scheduling spot that I want to back this team. They've been out on the road, and they've absolutely been struggling, going 1-3 on that road trip. And normally you look at them coming back home, and on a bad road trip, it could be a bet on spot, especially versus a team like the Islanders that's been struggling. But the problem here is they're back out on the road tomorrow versus the Colorado Avalanche, who are in the Central Division. The same with the Stars. The Stars trying to cling onto that first place in the Central, with the Avs sitting a third there. I think they're already in a look-ahead situation for tomorrow's game, and the Islanders can come in and capitalize. We're getting the value on the Islanders here at +140-ish right now, so I'm all over them in this matchup. I think they can get it done, and they did win this matchup back in January. They were at home, winning it 3-2, but I think they can come out nice and strong again in this one and get another win here, Kevin.
I like the look, certainly. I will let people know that this game could have my favorite prop on the board here tonight. Now, the last name shouldn't beat me up, but it might. Descheny, the senator for the Dallas Stars, a 55-point season right now, has found himself a bit cold here, 3 straight games without a point. But returning back home for Dallas tonight, again, doesn't mean, I actually think the Isles make a lot of sense just from looking at it quickly here. Again, trust Joe on that, not me. But a prop in this game to me could be Descheny. Did anybody catch your eye prop-wise, Joe?
I was looking at Bo Horvat here for the New York Islanders. You can take him for that anytime goal at +195. He's just been so hot out there for them. He's a player I can really trust. But I like where you're going with Perchetti in that one for the Dallas Stars. He has been phenomenal out there for them, and he should be able to find the back of the net tonight.
All right, let's talk about everybody's favorite team, the Edmonton Oilers at home, a -160 favorite, give or take. Another total booked at 6.5. They bring the LA Kings into town, Joe. Where are you looking in this game?
Oh, the Oilers, they've been absolutely struggling out there. And I look at that last matchup versus Calgary, and they went down 3 goals so quick in that first period. It's really hard to back them here. They lost that game to Calgary. They lost the one prior to the Minnesota Wild 4-2, and then to the Boston Bruins in overtime in a game where they allowed the Boston Bruins to be able to come back and win that one 6-5. I just don't trust them here, and especially at this price. This is another divisional matchup here with a battle of the Pacific. They are both fighting for that third spot, tied up right now. And I do think with the value we're getting on the LA Kings, if you're taking a side, you've got to look at the Kings here at that plus 130 mark. I do think they have all the talent to be able to get it done. I think the stronger way to look at this, though, although I am backing the Kings at the plus 130, is looking at this under 6.5. The Edmonton Oilers have to get back to the game plan that they were winning on. On that 16-game winning stretch, they were locking down on the defensive side, not allowing their opponents to score. They've stopped doing that. And, Connor McDavid's been joking with the media that he's just going to try to get all the assists he can because he can't get the puck in the back of the net to save his life. Well, I don't believe that. I think Connor McDavid is still going to try to find the back of the net, but we're going to see more of those back checks out of them. The defense really needs to play a pivotal part, and the forwards like Connor McDavid need to drop back and get those hits. So I'm looking for this one to stay under the 6.5. We know the LA Kings are so strong defensively. I really like what they've done under their interim coach, Hiller, out here. Since he has taken over, they're 6-2 for him. So I love their ability to come out nice and strong in this one, but defense has to be the name of this game if Edmonton wants any chance of hanging tight with the Kings.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting here for the Oilers to drop that game at home to Boston. We talked about it. Joe mentioned she thought it could be a good spot for Boston. They followed it up. They played Minnesota. And I remember we were going to the game. You're like, look, I expect goal scoring. Weren't sure as much on the side. They dropped that game. I am sure a lot of people trusted them. Oh, they're not losing 2 in a row to Minnesota. Oh, they're not losing 3 in a row to Calgary. And that's sometimes where you get caught. This is an Oilers team that won, near a record amount of games in a row. And sometimes it comes back around, and it's coming back around right now. We'll see if they can stop the bleeding against the LA Kings. Speaking of Boston, they're playing tonight. They're playing in Seattle, booked as a favorite at minus 150, Joe. Our only total of 5.5 on the night. Where do you look here?
Another team that's been playing inconsistent is the Boston Bruins. And I feel like we start falling into these traps where, well, the Boston Bruins have to win this one. I'm not buying into it. They've only won 3 of their last 10 games. And you look at that last loss versus the Vancouver Canucks, they were up 2-0 and allowed the Vancouver Canucks to come back and tie it up in the third period and then win it in overtime. This is, again, a team I can't trust. This team needs to get home. They will be home on Thursday versus the Vegas Golden Knights, and maybe they can turn things back around there. But I do think the Seattle Kraken hold all the value here at plus 120. This team has been playing better as of late. They were able to win in Boston just not long ago. They won that one 4-1 in Boston on February 15th. And you look at the Boston Bruins, and the biggest knock against them right now is the amount of overtime they have played. Their last 5 games have gone to overtime. This is a hard Pacific trip for them, facing not only the Oilers, but the Calgary Flames, the Vancouver Canucks, and now the Seattle Kraken. You look at teams doing these trips, and they are extremely hard. To then put all of these games to overtime, and 6 of their last 7 games also have gone to overtime, with the only game in those last 7 not going to overtime was when the Seattle Kraken beat them on their own ice. So I've got to roll with the Kraken in this one. If they're able to get the win, though, I do expect that lockdown on the defensive side. I'm going to take this one under the 5.5, and I know 5.5 is so hard to take to that under. But you look at goaltending here. You've got Allmark in net for the Boston Bruins, and the Bruins absolutely know they have to come out so strong defensively in this one. The Seattle Kraken are not a team that instill a lot of confidence on that offensive side of the puck. They will have Grubauer in net, and he's been pretty solid the last couple of games that he has come out. So I have faith in him to keep this one to a lower scoring one. So give me the Kraken with that plus money and the under 5.5, Kevin.
Let me ask you this quickly, Joe, before we let you go here. Some of these teams at the top of the Stanley Cup mark, we just mentioned Edmonton and Boston, a bit inconsistent. Colorado's dropped 2 in a row. Is any of this concerning to you, or is it perhaps maybe just that time of year where some teams hit a dip?
Yeah, it's that time of year. These teams go through those ebbs and flows, and you look at the Vancouver Canucks. They're sitting the top of the Pacific right now. Some of these teams need to go through those losing streaks right now because they can't do it towards the end of the season and then roll into the playoffs on that kind of stretch. So I'm not surprised with, the Avs dropping a couple, the Rangers breaking that streak to the Columbus Blue Jackets. That one had the upset written all over it the more you think about it, because battle of the Metro there. But you look at these teams and they can't roll into the playoffs like the Boston Bruins did last year and then just completely fall apart. We need these teams to face adversity before the playoffs start and get back on track right before they start off. So I'm not worried about these teams at all, Kevin.
Yeah, look, and also noteworthy, Edmonton has moved to the favorite to win the Stanley Cup in front of Colorado, 8-1 on the Oilers, plus 850 on the Avs, but we're so often talking about the NBA, maybe even the NFL. I mean, if you look at how tight, it is here right now. We talk about the race to win. You have the top 10 all inside 20-1 or shorter. It's going to be interesting to watch it play out. And Joe Madden will certainly be helping us the entire way throughout this NHL season. Coach James Young is in next. Help us break down the NBA and college boards here on Game Time Decisions.
Johnny's a 19-point lead late in the opening half, only to squander that lead. Hall ball under Shaheen Holloway coming all the way back.
All these guards start jacking up shots, and then Chioriero doesn't get the ball. Hey, Rick, how about stop throwing your kids under the bus and get your big man the ball, your best player, play inside out like you were doing earlier in the game, and you probably would have won.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
We just watched the final seconds of Illinois and Penn State, and by Dave's reaction, you think you know what happened there. How about that, Dave? How about that?
We're off the rundown. Sorry. Storm the court. You beat the 12th team in the country. That's fine. Second best in the Big Ten. That's fine. We are Penn State. Look at the crew jumping. This is so much fun.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
It felt during the year that there was a little bit of disconnect with Wilks and Kyle Shanahan. The total points allowed by Steve Wilks' defense the last 3 years before this, head coach for the Cardinals, they gave up the 26th most points, defensive coordinator for the Browns, 20th most points, and then Carolina, they gave up the 19th most points.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid. Live with you right here at SportsGrid's Game Time Decisions on a Monday night. I'm Kevin Walsh. I'm here with Coach James Young. JY, how are you?
I'm good, man. Just finished up another BATR podcast. We had some great college basketball over the weekend, some intriguing matchups tonight in college basketball. Yeah. So we're rolling, K-Dub. We're almost into March.
Look, we're gonna mix in some of what happened and some of what's coming tonight. I want to get people though. I'm sure for a lot of people, North Carolina's in action. They're looking to bet it. It's a 7:00 tip on this college board, a 14.5-point favorite. Total right now sitting at 155.5. JY, what do you like in this game?
I'll tell you what. You know me. I'm as big of a Larinaga guy there is. This team is a mess. They're hurt. They look disinterested, and they are just getting absolutely rolled. Miami's 1-5 against spread their last 6 games. UNC covered the last 2. 2 teams going in opposite directions, K-Dub. One team's playing out the string, amazingly enough to say that about a team like North Carolina, and another team is actually, I'm playing out the string in Miami, and another team in North Carolina that's playing themselves for maybe a 2, Kevin, maybe a 1 seed, how things come down the stretch. Give me Carolina minus the points at home. Throw out the 75-72 game at Miami. That was weeks ago. Miami's gone way the other way since. Give me Carolina minus the points.
All right, there, a little UNC love here, potentially a 1 seed. And if that's the case, I think we know that the 1 seed that would be knocked off, that would be Arizona. Houston, UConn, and Purdue all look very secure. We're going to talk some Big 12 basketball in a minute here, JY, but Houston getting that win at Baylor, was that the most impressive thing you saw this weekend college basketball-wise?
It was, Kevin, because when I was on In-Game Live, I actually did something different where I actually kind of went to my coaching style, and I brought the actual whiteboard out, and I was diagramming stuff and showing people. The way Houston defends, it's like back in the day when I used to coach where you would play a really athletic team, and you would put 8 guys on the floor, or 8 girls on the floor to simulate like how much they move. That's how Houston is. They move that well. And I think the concern that we had with Houston for years, Kevin, right, was, well, they were in the American. They weren't tested. They weren't tested. They weren't tested. Look at what they've done. They have 3 losses so far in the Big 12. The first 2, you and I were on air talked about, especially the first one against Iowa State, right, where they played awful and almost came back and stole it. Then they had TCU game, same thing. Lost it, I think, in the last 5 or so seconds. And then there was the one game that didn't meet what they do defensively, which is when Kansas shot the you-know-what out of it. They are battle-tested, Kev. And to me, as much as they lean on Shed and Cryer, what I saw over the weekend, to be honest with you, they got to have aggressive Juwan Roberts. Juwan Roberts, that's a matchup nightmare. You notice, Kevin? He's athletic. He's bouncy. He's got that little funky left-hand shot. He shoots it around the rim. If they can get interior play by him and Francis to go along with the guard play, they may have enough scoring to get there, Kevin, because you know they're going to have the defense.
I will say, here's the deal on Houston. Give them all the credit in the world. A lot of people believe the Big 12 is definitely the best conference in college basketball. It's obviously very good. Their first year in it, they're going to win the regular season. Give them all the credit in the world. There are 2 things that worry me. One is the tempo, because here's the deal. Bennett won that title, and it's covering for a lot. That Virginia team stinks again. They're dead last in tempo. They're an embarrassment. R.J. Davis was shot 1 of 14. They lost that game. Houston runs the same tempo, and it's tough to cross the finish line. And as someone that was on them last year, Jarace Walker and Marcus Sasser were both first-round picks. They have no first-round picks currently on this roster. How many NBA players they have is a very legitimate question, JY. And I'll just tell you this. Gonzaga knocked on the door every year for a decade and didn't finish it out. Now, you can bet a big number on Houston and say, I'm going to the Final Four. And you might be right. But when we're talking about the Cougars, they are one of, let's call it, 10 teams, maybe a little shorter, maybe a little less, JY. This season is title or bust for Houston. And I don't think it's ultimately going to be a title.
Well, it remains to be seen. But I'm going to push back a little bit on the tempo because, to me, there's there's two different ways to look at it. There's a tempo offensively, but it's a style of play defensively. See, the backline defense, if people understand it for Virginia, is predicated on not a lot of ball pressure, right, Kevin? And the ability to force teams to take contested twos. It's a very, I would say, non-aggressive defense. Houston's defense is completely the other side. They body you up. They pressure the ball like crazy. They force turnovers and they force you into pain. The tempo offensively could be a problem, yes. But to me, defensively, it's far different than the pack line. And if they had to speed it up a little bit, they have the more propensity to do so because they're more athletic than those teams of Virginia, but also defensively, they get out in passing lanes and they force you way away from the basket and they're very aggressive.
And again, they are clearly a great team, JY, but they've been great for a few years, right? We'll see. Maybe this is their year. Talk to me about Big 12 basketball tonight. We actually have a Big 12 game that's not ranked, but it's the only other power conference matchup. It's K-State and it's West Virginia with the Wildcats laying 9.5 over for what is a lot of people the worst team in the Big 12. What do you see in this game?
Well, here's what I see. I see a West Virginia team that is 1-4 against the spread. The last 5 road games, the game they covered was the last game against Iowa State. K-State is usually very good at home, and here's where I'm at. You have a team in West Virginia that played very well in Ames against Iowa State, and they got to turn around, and 2 days later, they got to play again. This is when a bad team, Kevin, gives you a great performance on the road, and then gives you a dud right afterwards. Here's the dud. K-State minus the points.
All right, fair enough. I want to ask you, we have plenty of time, because I asked you what was the most impressive thing you said, Houston, and I think that's winning at Baylor is always impressive. I know Bama's defense isn't great. I know they play fast as anyone. 117 from Kentucky.
That's a ton.
I mean, it's a ton, Jake. Hey, tell you why. It's a ton. I'll tell you, Virginia could never. I'm going to spend the whole show ripping Virginia. I'm going to tell you that right now. That team scored 44. Kentucky scored more than that in both halves, okay? Alabama's defense is still inside the top 100, okay? Basically, all I'm saying is the Cavaliers can kick rocks. For me, I don't know, though, and I'm curious where you land on this. Is that takeaway more about Kentucky showing what their peak is, or Bama showing that defense will stop them from winning another national championship?
No, I think it has more to do with the fact of Kentucky. I mean, Kevin, the thing that makes Kentucky so scary is when you think about March, right? And the game slows down, and you got the best on best. Kevin, we've talked about this. You need guard play to win in March. That's why Purdue has never done it. Even with Zach Edey. It has nothing to do with Zach Edey. Zach Edey's fantastic. They got no guards. I mean, they're better this year. Braden Smith is better this year. They're a year older. But Kevin, who's got more guards than Kentucky? Who's got more guys that can get a shot off than Kentucky? When you talk about Reeves. I mean, we talked about this before. You got Shepard and Dillingham coming off the bench. Kevin, they start for what? 90% of the teams in the country at the guard spot? And then all of a sudden, if that's the case, and DJ, who's struggling, who's working his way back from an ankle injury, then you got to turn around, and it's Justin Edwards turns around and drops 28 in 29 minutes. I mean, they have a plethora of guards that can go get a bucket. And we saw them now, Kevin, in 2 Saturdays in a row, win differently. They won in a, you ready, Kevin? A rock fight, a defensive battle with Auburn. And then you saw them in an 80s up and down offensive showdown versus Alabama, and they laid 117 points. I was on the early line this morning, and I said this. They're not a sleeper. You know, Ben had to talk to me about what the term sleeper is. I thought sleeper is just basically based on odds. He talked more about a team coming from nowhere. I'm telling you right now, Kentucky is a value pick to win a national championship because they can get hot and win 6 games. And Kevin, because of they have so many guys that can score, if you get 2 of them or even 3 of them going at the same night, you're not beating them. Kentucky, value play to win a national championship.
Look, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. I will do the off-air conversation where I ask you about who comes back for that team, because I really hope we don't do the thing where 8 of them are drafted in the first round, and in 3 years, 5 of them aren't in the NBA anymore. We'll see. What I'm going to do is I'm going to keep you, and we'll do this Pacers-Raptors game, because I want to ask you about something else. And that's Rick Pitino. The Seton Hall game was a disaster. There's no other way to label it. They beat Georgetown. Now, beating Georgetown by 5 is nothing to be excited about. They didn't cover in the game, but it was a win. And then they just followed that up by beating Creighton big time. By 14, they were 3.5-point favorite, 3.5-point dog of the game. Remaining for them at Butler, winnable, and then it's at DePaul and home against Georgetown. You're talking about double-digit favorites in 2 of these 3 games. How do you feel about St. John's? Because, JY, you were very critical, understandably, after he ripped his team after the loss against Seton Hall. How do you feel about them coming out of the weekend?
You know what, Kevin? It's the first time that I saw a St. John's game where I felt in the Garden there was juice. And it's not because Rick Pitino looked like a mafia don in the all-white suit. I mean,
it helps.
Shout out to, I'm going to give a shout out to Mrs. Pitino for telling to have him go get that white suit. But you got to admit, Kevin, there was a buzz. There was an energy. There was something in there in the Garden. But I tell you what, you can say whatever you want. If Jenkins gives you the performance that he gave you, where he went absolutely off, 27 points, yeah, then you got a shot. But I want to push back a little bit on Creighton and what I saw. This team, and you watch the game, Kevin, Shireman was awful. I mean, awful. 12 points. He shot about 3 air balls, stepped out of bounds 2 or 3 times. The other kid, Ashworth, looked like a kid that didn't even want the basketball. So they have things St. John's that they can do. The problem is this. When it comes down to it, can these guards settle down, take quality shots, and if they can't turn you over, can they beat you? I don't think so, but they're trending towards the tournament. I have to admit that.
2 things. One, that it is tough watching Jenkins and Clayton Jr. be so good at their programs, knowing that if Rick would have stayed, he probably could have got him back at Iona for another year. Maybe not. We are always, at this point of the year, we are talking about value plays, who can make the deep run. Do not forget, when you see a performance like what you saw from Creighton, to circle them as someone you want to fade when we get to the tournament. We do a little Pacers and Raptors next.
Johnny's a 19-point lead late in the opening half, only to squander that lead. Hall ball under Shaheen Holloway coming all the way back.
All these guards start jacking up shots, and then Cioriano doesn't get the ball. Hey, Rick, how about stop throwing your kids under the bus and get your big man the ball, your best player, play inside out like you were doing earlier in the game, and you probably would have won.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
We just watched the final seconds of Illinois and Penn State, and by Dave's reaction, you think you know what happened there. How about that, Dave? How about that?
We're off the rundown. Sorry. Storm the court. You beat the 12 team in the country. That's fine. Second best in the Big Ten. That's fine. We are Penn State. Look at the crew jumping. This is so much fun.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
It felt during the year that there was a little bit of disconnect with Wilks and Kyle Shanahan. The total points allowed by Steve Wilks' defense the last 3 years before this, head coach for the Cardinals, they gave up the 26th most points. Defensive coordinator for the Browns, 20th most points. And then Carolina, they gave up the 19th most points.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid. All right, we're live with you here on SportsGrid Game Time Decisions. We're going to do some college football odds in just a moment, but JY, one NBA game tipping at 7-10. That's Indiana-Toronto. Where do you see value in this game?
I'm gonna go with R.J. Barrett over 20.5 points. R.J. Barrett has gone over this in 8 of his last 13 games. 3 out of 4 versus Pacers. I expect you see that 245.5 over under. I think there's gonna be plenty of points in this game. We do know that Toronto does struggle, but so does Indiana. No stopper. RJ gets loose. RJ Barrett over 20.5 points.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mentioned this earlier in the show, JY. One thing I'm keeping tabs on right now is Benedict Mathurin. He's come out of the break 35 and 33 minutes in the 2 games. And you know this, but sometimes sophomores settle in, and I wonder if Carlisle is trusting Benedict Mathurin more. The only reason I'm not playing his props more with full confidence tonight is it is the second leg of a back-to-back, and I just don't know how Carlisle is going to handle the minutes tonight.
Yeah, and I think that's a concern. But listen, at the end of the day, they do what they do. They don't change, Kevin. Yeah. They're going to run this up. They're going to make this a track meet. You can start looking at some of the like the ancillary guys, the bench guys. Like honestly, folks, maybe we're looking at assists for someone like T.J. McConnell. He's going to get 18, 19, 20 minutes. He's going to get some assists. He's really crafty with the ball, kind of like J.J. Barea, like dribbles all over the place, and then find someone for an open shot. If you don't want to go with main guys with Indiana, maybe look at the bench pieces. But by the way, if Miles Turner can give you what he gave you last night with 33 points, that team becomes really dangerous in the playoffs because then Benedict doesn't have to have pressure of scoring. He could be that fourth guy.
I will say to Coach's point, it has been a very long time since Halliburton played normal minutes on a back-to-back. I would not expect 35 tonight from Tyrese. It opens it up elsewhere on this basketball team. JY is back in 10 minutes. We go through the rest of the NBA board. We have a Davis Maddox same-game parlay and some college football breakdowns next. live right here. It's a Monday night on SportsGrid. It's Game Time Decisions. I'm Kevin Walsh with you for another hour. Still a lot of good stuff coming up in this hour. Just mentioned to you, Coach is back in 10 minutes. We go through the rest of the NBA board, plus some of the fallout from the weekend. I know he and I were happy to see what the Milwaukee Bucks brought to the table over their 2 games. We're going to have Joe Ranieri in at 7:40, Joe Lisi in as well. Updated college football conference markets for the outright winner in the Big Four, the SEC, the Big 10, the Big 12, as well as the ACC. We're going to break those down in just a moment, but before that, we go to tonight's NBA board with Davis Maddock delivering a same-game parlay in Memphis, Grizzlies-Nets.
All right, guys, we are back for another same-game parlay over on the FanDuel Sportsbook. As the NBA returns from their All-Star break, we're going to focus in on 2 terrible teams, the Brooklyn Nets and the Memphis Grizzlies. For some reason, the Nets are favored at Memphis. That's how we're going to begin. We are going to take the Grizzlies on the money line. Very slight money line here. That's how we're going to begin our same-game parlay. We are also going to take the over on 215.5. The Grizzlies offense is sort of piecing itself together as Jaren Jackson Jr. is getting a lot of minutes at center. They have a little bit of shooting here on the roster. Now, obviously, neither of these teams are great. I just think it's a little bit bizarre that the Grizzlies are dogs to a very mediocre Nets team. And then we are going to add Jaren Jackson Jr. to record 20 or more points in this game. This 3-leg same-game parlay is going to give us plus 306 odds. Grizzlies money line over 215.5, and Jaren Jackson Jr. to record 20 or more points in this game. Good luck tonight, everybody.
Back right here on SportsGrid. Great breakdown from Davis Maddock. Our radio audience is live with you on a Monday night, Sirius XM channel 159. I'm Kevin Walsh. It is Game Time Decisions. Behind me, the college football conference favorites from, of course, the major conferences. Now, it is not written exactly that the 4 byes will go to the winner of each of these conferences. It could be the MAC winner, Conference USA, the American. It is just never going. I shouldn't say never. Cincinnati made the college football playoff. It is going to take quite a lot for that to be the case. So what that means, before we dive into the exacts of this all, Georgia would get a bye, right? Win the SEC. Ohio State win the Big 10. K-State wins the Big 12. We have a little situation here between Florida State and Clemson. I've already mentioned this once. I will mention it again. We are a ways away. But we want to bring you new markets when they come along. Plus, let's be honest, you all miss football. I do too. We always miss it. But if I right now just had to simply bet something on price, Clemson to win the national title presents value. At minimum, now this doesn't exist just yet, and you know I'm waiting for it to come out, but Clemson to make the college football playoff. There is a huge gap right now in terms of team number 1 to win the national championship, which is Georgia, and when you get down to Clemson at 30-1. If the Clemson Tigers, let's just say they price them at plus 270, right, to make the college football playoff. They're like, come on, the only way they get in is if they're winning the ACC. I do not think that's true. I think this plays out way differently, where it is going to be difficult for the SEC and the Big Ten to send all of their teams. So let's open this up a little bit. Let's look at the SEC's outright market and who comes after the Georgia Bulldogs. And there's going to be something that stands out. Texas 3-1, 650 Ole Miss. Oh my goodness, Alabama is plus 950. That is going to be taking a lot of wagers. I have to believe so. I know Saban's out. I know DeBoer is in. That is a wild number on a team that is returning a quarterback who is inside the top 5 odds. I'm sure you're rolling the eyes. Kevin, Jalen Milroe. Look, the odds are what the odds are. Returning a quarterback at this level, that's what Georgia's doing. That's what Texas is doing. I get it, okay? But the fact that Alabama's returning Milroe has to matter. One note from the SEC schedule is Bama this year is playing Georgia in the regular season. We became very accustomed to that never happening. Also, just because I'm sure it's a bit eye-catching, not just only seeing Texas, but seeing Oklahoma. Again, you're talking purely based on numbers. How does OU at 40 not jump out? Oklahoma is a team that was absolutely in the mix to make the college football playoff last year. couple of things. They could have won a Big 12 if Oklahoma State would have just coughed up one of those late games. They were certainly the second best team in the Big 12. And that puts them as the 9th best team overall in the SEC. I think time will tell on that. Let's go to the Big 10, which, of course, as well, is going to look much different than what we have come accustomed to, where this league is picked between Ohio State or Michigan, and maybe you can throw a flyer on Penn State. That's not even how we label this up. We go, Ohio State is a favorite. We go to the Ducks. Gaps. I would say Ohio State and Oregon are tier 1, and Michigan's not inside that tier. I think they're down here with Penn State, okay, in tier number 2 at 6-1. That's a legitimate difference, okay? This is where the conference realignment really stands out. And again, can this conference send, let's just put these top 4 because of how short the odds are, okay? Can they send all of them to the college football playoff? There's only 12 spots. They're going to take up a third of the spots in the Big 10? Maybe. Time will tell. Again, you're playing simple prices. I know some people will be interested in UW because they were there. They lost a ton. For me, I'm thinking you get Luke Fickell year 2, 80-1, huge number. But it is you. Lincoln Riley showed up in the Pac-12 year 1 and went right to the conference championship game. And if Caleb didn't get injured in the game, they win the game. That's the reality of it. Utah fans won't like that. I don't care. That's the truth. Lincoln Riley, every single year, is in the mix. You could absolutely make an argument, a pretty good one. He's the best coach in this conference, no? I mean, who are you going to submit? Dan Lanning? Harbaugh's gone. Nobody likes Ryan Day. I mean, Sharon Moore for 2-3 fill-in games gets that nod. No, don't hear me. Oh, no James Franklin. I don't want to hear that. Not Kirk Ferentz. No, sir. So if I get the best coach in the conference, I'm going to ask Joe Lisi about that. Maybe there's some value on USC. Let's do a little Big 12. Let's do a little ACC. We'll start it off with the Big 12 here. Again, what is important, you don't have to like any of these teams. One of them is guaranteed to get in. One of them is guaranteed to get in to the college football playoff. Now, again, not in that the Big 12 must send one, but the 5 highest ranked conference champions are going. There is no world we are getting 2 mid-major conference champions ranked ahead of the highest-ranked Big 12 team. It is a huge boost. It is why people will be betting K-State all the way down to Oklahoma State to win the national championship because they're not only going to get in, they're going to get a round 1 bye almost assuredly. We'll button this up with the ACC here. Florida State, Clemson, Miami, Louisville. One note off of today's news, UMass joins the MAC. Only 2 independent teams remain, UConn and the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Notre Dame, now in this new format, with the fact that if they are the number 1 team in the country, wouldn't get a bye, maybe one day we see Notre Dame ranked here inside these ACC odds. Coach James Young back next.
Johnny's a 19-point lead late in the opening half, only to squander that lead. Hall ball under Shaheen Holloway coming all the way back.
All these guards start jacking up shots, and then Soriano doesn't get the ball. Hey, Rick, how about stop throwing your kids under the bus and get your big man the ball, your best player, play inside out like you were doing earlier in the game, and you probably would have won.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
You just watched the final seconds of Illinois and Penn State, and by Dave's reaction, you think you know what happened there. How about that, Dave? How about that?
We're off the rundown. Sorry. Storm the court. You beat the 12 team in the country. That's fine. Second best in the Big 10. That's fine. We are Penn State. Look at the crew jumping. This is so much fun.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. the New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
It felt during the year that there was a little bit of disconnect with Wilks and Kyle Shanahan. The total points allowed by Steve Wilks' defense the last 3 years before this, head coach for the Cardinals, they gave up the 26th most points. Defensive coordinator for the Browns, 20th most points. And then Carolina, they gave up the 19th most points.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid. Back right here, Game Time Decisions. Let's close out all of our college talk for the time being. JY, what are you doing here with this BYU BYU. I'm stuck on BYU. I don't want to get into the court storming thing. I have a very simple take. I'm right, and everyone should agree with me. You don't storm the court if you're the favorite. JY, I'm right about that. JY, you do not. I don't care that Wake Forest. Don't lower yourself. Don't storm the court. You do not storm the court if you're favored in the game. Is that fair?
No, because for Wake Forest, they haven't sold out a game in 9 years. I will say this. Listen.
Now they're never going to let fans back in the arena.
Hold on.
Bozos.
I have some thoughts really quick. Number one, you think I'm crazy. 1.4 seconds left. Steve Forbes takes a timeout, 83-79. You think the game is over, right? I think the game's over. So I have suggestions for John Shire. Tell your kids, go in the locker room. We'll shake hands in the tunnel. We're getting out of here. These kids are fired up. Take the 5 second.
You know what I'm telling my kids?
Take the 5-second call. Pull an Isaiah Thomas.
You know what I'm telling my kids?
And go.
The line was 2.5. We're down 4. Go get a bucket. Go cover a number, boys. That's what I'm telling those kids. All right?
Although, you know what? You're right, because I did have Villanova plus 1.5 versus UConn, and Armstrong hit the half-court shot at the buzzer and lost by 1. But I was on the road. But still. And here's the other thing. How about this one? Ready? Here's the crazy one. There were kids that were on the floor before 0.0 on the clock. Technical foul.
How many kids, JY? 4? 4 technical fouls. Games can still be going.
8 shots.
Games can still be going. Again, but guess what? If you're Wake Forest and you have a little self-respect and you know you're booked as a favorite in that game, then you don't storm the court at all and run that risk. That's my stance on this. JY, what are you doing? I'm just saying, BYU stormed the court earlier this week. They were a 4.5-point favorite. They're ranked 25th in the country. That's embarrassing. They should never be ranked again, or at least a 1-year ban on being ranked. No court storming when you're the favorite. TCU Baylor. Better be a great pick, JY. What do you got?
Kevin, as a coach, I always get worried that when a one-day prep, you come off and you give so much effort to come back in a game. Baylor, terrible the first half, down 16, storm all the way back, get it to overtime when they could have won in regulation if they made a damn free throw with 4 seconds left, even though it shouldn't have been a foul call. You take the lead in overtime, you give it right back, you spend all that energy, and then you got to go what they call it, Fort Court Dixon. You got to go play Jamie Dixon at TCU. I think that this Baylor team has no energy coming out of this game with a one-day prep. I am taking TCU on the money line in Waco tonight.
All right, little money line action there to close out the college breakdown. Let's talk some NBA, JY. We've got a 7:30 New York Knicks game. They need it. They're favored to get it. How do you feel about the Knicks and the Pistons?
First thing I'm going to go with, Kevin, I'm going to go with the team total over 117.5. I just paid a little bit for it to come down. You've seen that 118.5 on other books. I get it, folks. I get it. The Knicks have not hit this number in 6 straight. 118 versus Detroit. Bad mood after last game. I'm worried about the backdoor cover. Detroit is terrible defensively. I'll pay a little bit to get the drop down a little bit. Give me the Knicks team total over 117.5.
And then some props for you, Coach, in that game as well?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Jalen Duren over 10.5 rebounds at minus 135. Jalen Duren, who averages 12 rebounds a game, over in 9 out of his last 14 games, 12 last time versus the Knicks. And if you look at a guy like Hartenstein, it's not the type of big, Kevin, it's going to get you in a lot of foul trouble. So I think he'll be able to play. And you know when it comes down to Jalen, it comes down to, honestly, minutes. When he gets the minutes, he gets the rebound. Jalen Duren over. And I'm going to go somewhere different here. I'm going to go Deuce McBride. You're like, Deuce who? I'm going to go with Deuce McBride over his points prop. Shop around because not a lot of books have it. His points prop is at 5.5. Ever since the trade, think about this, folks. Since the Toronto game on the 20th, he has gone over in 11 out of 14 games. 11 last time versus Boston. Detroit, terrible defensively. And Deuce is starting to get more minutes and more trust out of Tibbs. Low-hanging fruit. Deuce McBride over 5.5 points coming off the bench.
All right there. Listen, I'll tell you what, with a prop like that, you're always in the mix. Let's talk some Nets, unfortunately. I hate this team.
I know.
I love this team. I adored them. They were my guys. And now Mikal Bridges he's completely lost me. He's completely lost me. No longer in the Mikal Bridges camp.
Mm-hmm.
Ben Simmons, if we're going to salvage this, we got to leave again. But it's not getting salvaged in Brooklyn, it appears. What are you doing with this game of the Grizzlies tonight?
Yeah, that's terrible. Can't stand Mikal Bridges. Hasn't been the player that he was last year. I'm going to go with Mikal Bridges over 20.5 points tonight versus Memphis. Over 10 of his last 15 games. 24 last time versus Memphis. Memphis is just poor defensively. I want people to understand this. In the NBA, Kevin, you know this, all these guys can score. Why do guys not get playing time? Generally, for the defensive inefficiencies. We see all the injuries that's taken place, obviously, with Memphis. I'm going to go with Mikal Bridges over 20.5 points, and I actually think the Nets get the win on the road.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I just hate talking about the Nets. Ben Simmons is going to play tonight, by the way. I don't know what's up with him. I'm sure he doesn't want to be there anymore. I don't know. I don't blame him.
Here's the crazy thing, Kevin. If you think about the whole Ben Simmons saga, like there's reports that coming out that Spencer Dinwiddie and Mikal Bridges partially wanted to get, which we don't know if this is true. I don't know how. That they wanted to get Jock Vaughn fired because that they were going to center the offense around Ben Simmons. Number one, I don't understand how a coach would center an offense around a player who's never playing. He's always hurt. So that doesn't make sense. And number two, who the hell is Spencer Dinwiddie anyway to complain about anything about playing time? Listen, this guy's had a decent career, but he runs his mouth like he's an all-star. He's done this for a long time. Now he's with the Lakers. Well, hopefully he helps him out. I know he ain't going to go, pull on Superman's cape, the King's cape a little bit. He'll pipe that over there in L.A. But that being said, I just think the Nets, they're in trouble. They're going nowhere. And I really hope, and I'm a Knicks fan, so I hope they're bad forever. I don't care. But there's rumors that the Koch brothers may buy out part of Josiah. They got more money than anybody. And the bigger issue is this. Whoever owns the Nets at the end of the year, can you please fire Sean Marks? Like, can you just do it already? I mean, this freaking guy has been through 2 owners, like 4 coaches, 7 prime ministers, 3 presidents, 5 secretary of states, and he still stinks. The last time he did it with anything good, he had it. He had it. He had Kenny Atkinson. He had a young core. He had KD, and he flushed the whole thing down the toilet, went and got Steve Nash, traded for James Harden, traded for Kyrie, and all hell broke loose. You should be, to quote the great Vince McMahon, Kevin's favorite guy, you should be, you're fired.
JY, not up to date on WWE news is the only thing.
I
can say.
Yeah, I should do.
Bad.
I shouldn't say Vince McMahon.
Real bad. Sacramento, Miami tonight. JY, did anything catch your eye in that game?
You know, Kevin, you're going to think I'm crazy, right? There's a lot of injuries, guys not playing. The line's 7.5. But if there's a guy that for one game can cover the spread, especially a team coming off a back-to-back, give me the Miami Heat plus the 7.5.
All right, little Miami Heat love Sacramento at the rest disadvantage in this basketball game. We will see how it plays out. Joe Lisi joins us next as we break down the college football situations next.
Johnny's a 19-point lead late in the opening half, only to squander that lead. Hall ball under Shaheen Holloway coming all the way back.
All these guards start jacking up shots, and then Cioriano doesn't get the ball. Hey, Rick, how about stop throwing your kids under the bus and get your big man the ball, your best player, play inside out like you were doing earlier in the game, and you probably would have won.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
We just watched the final seconds of Illinois and Penn State, and by Dave's reaction, you think you know what happened there. How about that, Dave? How about that?
We're off the rundown. Sorry. Storm the court. You beat the 12 team in the country. That's fine. Second best in the Big Ten. That's fine. We are Penn State. Look at the crew jumping. This is so much fun.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
It felt during the year that there was a little bit of disconnect with Wilks and Kyle Shanahan. The total points allowed by Steve Wilks' defense the last 3 years before this, head coach for the Cardinals, they gave up the 26th most points, defensive coordinator for the Browns, 20th most points, and then Carolina, they gave up the 19th most points.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets and when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid. Welcome in. It's Monday night. We're live with you here on SportsGrid. Joe Lisi. How about that? I mean, this guy, big time on the Mondays. Joe, how are you? You all right? You hanging in?
Yeah, it's a big Monday night. College shoots. Big ball game out there in Miami. I tell you that right now.
What are you hot on this UNC?
No, I might be.
You
I
usually
might
like the
one
jump
more
man.
time. Yeah, I do. But Miami's so gutless that they lost to Georgia Tech again, and now the money's going on North Carolina. This is a spot where I'm willing to jump on old man Larinaga for the final stand, 13.5 up to 14.5. I took it with the under Baylor TCU tonight.
Oh, sizzle under, late night. Really? Think you're on to something, huh?
Well, Baylor screwed me, Kev. I had plus 6.5 in game. I had them on the money line.
Yeah, good number.
The kid gets the N1 with 2 seconds left. He gets the N1 and misses the free throw in regulation.
Oh,
the
kid
kid
buries
the 3. Yeah, but I had the money line regulation. The kid gets blasted. He gets the N1. He scores the hoop. He can't hit a free throw.
Right.
He can't hit her. And then the kid on Houston buries a 3. Thankfully, it was it still was in his hands in the cylinder. The cylinder, right? Yeah, it was all red. And then I thought I had life, and they blew it in the OT.
I got to reach out to Donnie. You're really stretching the legs here with this college basketball breakdown. Look at you. Really
I sent you the sizzle plays over the weekend under the radar.
No, you didn't.
I sent them to you.
I think Donnie was breaking down baseball futures, if I had to guess. All right, let's talk a little college football here, Joe. We have eyes on conference odds, outright odds. And because it's you, I'm starting in the Big 12. Yeah. But there's a reason for that. And this is something that we talked about a little bit earlier last week. But it's not like written that a Big 12 team has to get in, but a Big 12 team will not only get in, but is going to get a round 1 bye, which makes getting this market correct very valuable. The longest odds on a favorite to win one of the major conferences is in the Big 12, K-State at plus 340. This board continues to have 5 different teams booked at under 10-1. What did you make when you first saw the Big 12 Conference Championship market?
Well, very competitive parity, right? That's the one thing that you can make the argument last year as well with Oklahoma State. Preseason 60-1 to win the Big 12, and they got there. Didn't get it done against Texas, but the value for Mike Gundy and the crew, a team that played in the Big 12 championship game just 2 years ago, right? So there's going to be value. I don't like to jump into the usual suspects. Granted, Cam Rising in Utah are going to be, one of those teams that everybody likes, along with Noah Fafita and Arizona, but it is a new head coach. There's going to be growing pains. The one team I look to, and it's, you're going to laugh at me, but you go to that 6, 7, and 8, UCF with KJ Jefferson, 10-1. We know he's the potential to take games over. Oak State with Ollie Gordon. And Iowa State with Rocco Beck. I picked Iowa State to be dead last in terms of Matt Campbell. The fact that they were over 500, got to a bowl game with a freshman quarterback, all eyes are on Iowa State this year.
Let me ask you this, though, because people are going to be betting them. Big number. It's 40-1 on Colorado. It was a weird ending to their season, but here's the one thing, JY. They might have.
JY.
Did I say JY? That couldn't have been me. So they must have hacked my microphone.
Hang on.
Listen.
Let's go to the TO.
Look.
I think we need a TO. I don't know. Producers, can we cut that?
Listen.
Man.
He's got me rattled, if I'm honest. He's got me rattled. I'll tell you later.
Okay.
Colorado's 40-1.
Yes.
Shador's coming back.
Yep.
Any interest in the Bucs?
Yeah, absolutely, because think about this. The out-of-conference games don't really matter to Colorado. It's what do they do in terms of conference? They move on from the Pac-12 to the Big 12. They have a speed advantage potentially, and this is a conference that we know you go down to offenses that can outscore the others. Look at Texas. Texas's defense was great, top 10, but their offense was as prolific as anybody, and Oklahoma State outscored opponents towards the end of last season.
We know about their defense. It was pathetic. It wasn't even top 30 in all the FBS, and they still made it to the championship game. Whichever team has that type of offense, Colorado fits the mold. If they could just fix their defense just a little, they have an opportunity at 40-1. That's great value. I love shots like that. I told you, I'm looking 6, 7, and 8 for the favorite, and then you take some deep shots like Colorado at 40-1. Why not?
Yeah, to your point, though, the out-of-conference, they beat Nebraska, they beat Colorado State, North Dakota State. I'm not saying that it'll be easy, but that's a game they're probably booked as a favorite in. What'll be interesting is, and I think this is up now, but if they can win the Big 12, it actually would give Shedeur a somewhat realistic chance at being in the Heisman race, which is where he's 40-1.
Right.
But he has to win the Big 12, right? Or at least be in that game. He has to be in the game.
Final weekend, if he puts up 5,000 yards, 50 touchdowns, I'm just throwing numbers out. But if he does that and his team is in, just the way Ollie Gordon was mentioned, potentially as a dark horse, right? Now, they didn't have the type of Ollie Gordon tailed off a little bit in regards to some of the games at the end of the regular season. But if he was pushing that 2,000-yard number last year and they were in the Big 12, he would have been maybe invited to New York. So I agree with you. 100% Shedeur has value at 40-1.
All right, let me ask you about this because I think it's going to be a number that catches a lot of people's eye, but that's Alabama plus 950 to win the SEC Conference Championship game. Ole Miss is plus 650. Texas is 3-1. Georgia is plus 185. Are you surprised by that Alabama number?
No, they have 3 very difficult games this year. They play Georgia, they play Tennessee in Knoxville, which is not easy, and they play LSU in Baton Rouge, which you know as well as anybody is going to be a very difficult game, especially with a first-year head coach. And I don't care that Caleb DeBoer played in big ball games in terms of Pac-12 and at Fresno State. The bullseye's on your bike. This is like coaching for the Knicks, the Rangers, the Giants, the Yankees. Tuscaloosa, he loses one game, especially early on. They're going to be all over him. The questions are going to be, what's going on? What are you doing? And Nick is in that building each and every day. That is not an easy first year for Kalen DeBoer.
It's going to be interesting, though, because you see a number like that on that team. What about the Oklahoma number? 40-1. Because you can't do odds because they're coming from the big. Because Texas is booked at plus 300. Oklahoma and Texas were not that different last year, Joe.
No, they weren't. Now the quarterback, obviously, they're starting quarterbacks at Oregon.
Yes,
but they have. But what he did with the defense was phenomenal, and they ran the football more consistently last year. They did get big plays in terms of the passing attack, and again, you look at Texas. Texas squares off with Georgia. That's an elimination game right there in terms of win totals. So if you want to take a shot at 40-1 with Oklahoma, why not?
Not good.
I don't know. Did I lose you? Yeah, there we go.
I'm frozen. So if you can hear me, I can't hear you. But I think you're doing a great job.
So we have, like we mentioned in regards to the SEC,
I got it my own
Georgia
return feed.
And Alabama have very difficult schedules this year. There you are. We lost you. You're crazy. What is going on?
What are we doing?
Here? I don't know.
Listen, I called you JY. I apologize. You cut my internet?
I don't know. They cut everything. I was talking to myself. I thought it was me. I wasn't sure. Was it live or was it Lacey? I thought it was the right side of my brain talking. Wasn't sure. But let me just throw this out because I brought it up. Georgia, in terms of schedule, and I bring up, Alabama with the win totals, Kev. 9.5 and 10.5 for Georgia. Georgia has a phenomenal schedule. We talk about Clemson. We talk about Alabama, and you talk about their matchup with Texas. Those are 3 games that can make or break Georgia's season from the win total perspective. Same thing with Alabama. 9.5, 3 very difficult ball games that we mentioned, along with Ole Miss that they have to play as well in Oxford. 4 potential games that Kalen DeBoer is going to be under the microscope for each one of those.
I'll say this, and again, we'll see what the numbers look like, right? Also, I need you, because we got cut off, you have to stick around. I need an extra 3 minutes of your time because I have another question, okay?
Go ahead.
But Texas right now is the 3rd best odds to win the national championship. What do you think they're going to be to make the college football playoff, Joe?
Probably
Minus 200?
even money. I would say even money. I would say
really?
even.
So
yeah.
I would think with the amount of teams that are going to get in, I feel like they're going to be a decent-sized favorite. No?
I think they would make them even money just because even though they are Texas, it's no longer the Big 12, it's the SEC. And knowing that they already have one game against Georgia, how is the rest of the SEC schedule gonna fare? Because it's not that they don't have the talent, it's the attrition and going through the schedule from the start of, end of August straight through December. Can they do it in their first year? That's going to be the main task for Steve Sarkisian and the crew.
Yeah, I just think with Texas, right, and this win total's booked at 10.5. It's got juice to the under, which would be 3 losses. Like, I'm eyeing up an under early. We're early. We'll see.
Right.
But if I got that team losing 3 games, I want to know if I can get plus money on them to miss the college football playoff. I need you to stick around for one thing, because I need you, and you get the whole break to think about it. Who is the best coach in the Big Ten? I know it's not Ryan Day. Harbaugh's gone. We'll answer that on the other side. Joe Ranieri is going to join us as well. It's a Monday night.
Johnny's a 19-point lead late in the opening half, only to squander that lead. Hall ball under Shaheen Holloway coming all the way back.
All these guards start jacking up shots, and then Soriano doesn't get the ball. Hey, Rick, how about stop throwing your kids under the bus and get your big man the ball, your best player, play inside out like you were doing earlier in the game, and you probably would have won.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
We just watched the final seconds of Illinois and Penn State, and by Dave's reaction, you think you know what happened there. How about that, Dave? How about that?
We're off the rundown. Sorry. Storm the court. You beat the 12th team in the country. That's fine. Second best in the Big Ten. That's fine. We are Penn State. Look at the crew jumping. This is so much fun.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
It felt during the year that there was a little bit of disconnect with Wilks and Kyle Shanahan. The total points allowed by Steve Wilks' defense the last 3 years before this, head coach for the Cardinals, they gave up the 26th most points, defensive coordinator for the Browns, 20th most points, and then Carolina, they gave up the 19th most points.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid. We're back right here on Sports Grid. And not only is Joe Lisi still here, Joe Ranieri joins the fold, which is excellent. Because we have a good question on the board. We are doing a little college football look ahead, but they dropped conference markets. When new markets appear, I like to be able to talk about them. And we've got two great guys to do it. But the Big Ten, right now, Ohio State plus 155. A lot of love for Ohio State. They have this great offseason. Oregon plus 250 because they got 7 quarterbacks. That would be the best quarterback on any other team in this conference. Then there's Michigan because they're defending champions. Harbaugh's gone. And then there's Penn State because we know that they'll beat every team that's not as good as them and lose to every single team that is as good as them. And then you get to 23-1, 35-1, 50-1. But my question is, and I'll go to you first, Joe Lisi, who is the best college football head coach in the Big Ten heading into next season?
Tough question, Kev, but because of how you broke it down, my 2 top guys, believe it or not, would be, and now records aside, Dan Lanning 1, Matt Rule 2, and Ryan Day 3. And that's the way
Get the heck out of here. You're nuts. Get out of here. No, that's not, I'm not letting that slide. I know who you're leaving out. No, enough. No, go ahead. All right, go ahead. Break it down. Go ahead, break it down. I can't wait to hear Ranieri's answer.
I think Dan Lanning has done a fantastic job in Eugene. Offensive, defensive line play has been fantastic, but his teams are never blown out. That is the biggest thing I think that when you look at it in terms of 2 years, they've been in each and every matchup. And now with Dylan Gabriel, I think they're just as good as Ohio State. There's a lot of pressure on Ryan Day. He's got everything around him. He's got 2 big play running backs, Travion Henderson, Quinshawn Junkins. He's got Caleb Downs. He's surrounded himself with Chip Kelly. Guess what? He loses to Michigan and he loses to Oregon in the middle part of the year. All the hot seat talk is going to heat up. And if he doesn't win or get to the college football playoff or bows out in the first round, he's done. So I don't know how you want it. Matt Rule, to me, in year 1, coach that team up. Give him year 2. I still think he's a better in-game coach than Ryan Day, and that's why I have him at number 2. I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt.
There's a notable omission there for me. Joe Ranieri, I'll let you go first. I'm just curious where you land on the Big Ten head coaching group.
Well, it's clearly P.J. Fleck. No, I'm kidding. So it's no, sorry, won't be there. Listen, I could certainly make a case for Luke Fickell. I won't. I do think if we're talking about right now, heading into the season, not what could be or what may be. In the Big Ten, I don't know that there is anybody more established and more successful than Ryan Day at Ohio State. I mean, outside of the Michigan State blunders, I mean, now granted, you lose to Michigan and we've got issues here, right? But Ohio State under Day now, what are we talking about? 2 Big Ten titles, 3 college football playoff appearances in 6 seasons, 4 years of 11 or more wins. I mean, there is nobody. Ohio State is still a pipeline to the NFL, so they're still going to have all the recruiting they need in order to be able to compete. So until he falls completely flat on his face and loses to everyone else outside of Michigan, I don't know how he's not currently right now that Harbaugh's out. You can't consider him to be the best in the conference.
I think it's interesting, Joe, because I think it's incredibly fair. It is one of those things where expectations then kind of mess things up, because what Ryan Day has done at Ohio State at 98% of other programs would be a miracle's work, but for the Buckeyes the past few years it's been underwhelming. But you only named one, so I can't get mad at anything you did. There is no world you up there in that top box are going to name 3 coaches in this conference better than Lincoln Riley. And you know that's exactly where I'm going with this. Get out of here, dude. That's Lincoln Riley.
I didn't know he was still coaching.
No problem.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm
Lincoln
sorry.
Riley.
I haven't heard about him.
You like Kirk Ferentz and the 13 points a game?
Lincoln Riley, the teams are still running on Alex Grinch's defense from last year. Can we stop already? 7.5 win total for Coach of the Year with Miller Moss. 7.5.
He's going to fly over it. He went 8-5 last year, and it was a disaster season. His first year in the Pac-12, you said he was going to fail. He went to the conference championship game. He wins it if Caleb doesn't tear the hamstring.
Keyword is if. He didn't win it, and he didn't get there last year, and he lost. What happened against Notre Dame? What happened against UCLA last year? What happened against Oregon?
What about the dominance of the Big 12?
On the field with top 5
What about the dominance of the Big 12?
So now we're come on.
Wow.
Yeah, that's not.
0-4. Wait a second. 0-4 in college football playoff appearances. What about that? We don't count that either.
All right, hold on. I'll just say this. I thought Joe Ranieri's very sound and fair argument for Ryan Day all applied to everything Lincoln Riley did while he was in the Big 12. They're the exact same.
Okay, here's the thing, though, and I don't disagree with Joe said, but you could also take the assessment, and here's what Harbaugh
Everyone
said.
agrees with Joe Ranieri. Interesting.
Oh, no, I love Joe, but you and I could buck heads. It's okay. But, the bottom line is that Urban Meyer got that program to the pinnacle, and Ryan Day kept the momentum rolling. And to some people, like Harbaugh, he thinks he started on third base. I mean, that's the bottom line. Yes, you could be a 10 or an 11-win football team, but if you can't win a big matchup in the college football playoff, or more importantly, can't knock off your rival, what good are you? So I put Ryan Day, I put Lincoln Riley in that type of situation. At least Dan Lanning took that team from where Mario Cristobal had it. Again, another coach that can't win a big game, and at least he stepped up and has he does. Dan Lanning is a very good coach. Don't get me started. It's only not even March yet.
Listen, but it's a lot of good things
We're
to come.
talking about recency. I mean, he's 19-8 at USC, and he also had another Heisman quarterback there, and he finished with that Heisman winner 8-5 this year, and he's going to be the number 1 pick in the draft. I mean, there's. For all great that he did at OU, and he did, and he's also coached 3 Heisman winners now, which I think puts him in rare territory there. It has not been a great USC tenure at all by any stretch, and I don't know. Let's face it, if he finishes anything less than outside, the possibility of winning a national championship or the Big Ten this year. When does the heat get turned up on Riley? Because nobody's going to remember what he did at OU if he falls flat and has another year like he did this year at SC.
Well, he's starting to sweat. Starting to sweat.
No, I'm not sweating one bit. The first year at USC was a success. I think anyone would agree with that. Last year was a gigantic failure. No other way to slice it. Now, the thing he has personally going for him is he can sidestep to the NFL whenever he wants. And I think everybody's aware of that. Like, if this year goes bad, he'll just be the Bears head coach in 2025. Right. But I think it's interesting. And again, Ryan Day's booked at plus 155. Dan Lanning's booked at plus 250. Lincoln Riley's been to a college football playoff. A lot more than James Franklin can say, sitting there at 6-1.
Right.
Listen, now, I think the biggest indictment on anything with Lincoln Riley is that Malachi Nelson left. I think that's a bad look. That's something that I would worry about, that he's losing the quarterback pipeline.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. I mean, here's the only other thing, and I know I've done multiple shows with you. I know that deep down in Kevin Walsh's, lineage of breakdowns, he has said that if Ryan Day loses to Michigan again, and you said he is on the hot seat.
Clock's ticking.
Yeah, get his ass out of Columbus. He can't coach his way out of a paper bag. So,
am I wrong?
To just sit there. No, you're not wrong. But to just say that Joe broke it down perfectly and that you can't, ruffle his feathers. Like,
No, listen, I didn't mind the Ranieri breakdown.
How you feel about Ryan Day. You think he's
put Matt Rule up there.
Ryan Day and Riley are in exactly the same boat. They're head coaches of ridiculous expectations of fan bases and alumni.
Right.
So the fact that they have been as successful as they have, not so much at OU, but it's not going to get any better for Lincoln Riley. I mean, Matt Day, what else does the guy have to do here? Any place else, the guy will be there for 20 years. He'll be there as long as he wants. But you're 56-8 over 6 years, and if you lose one more time to Michigan, you're done. It's just unrealistic expectations.
Right, but think about what's going to happen with Caleb DeBoer this year. Exactly the same thing, right? Caleb DeBoer goes 9-3 for back-to-back years. He's probably out on the outside looking into Tuscaloosa. And I'll just say this about Matt Rule. You can't look at Matt Rule on the college level in terms of what he did at Carolina. You have to look at what he did at Temple and Baylor, building those programs up, making them conference champions for the most part. And even though they underachieved last year, it's year 2 and it's where they are right now. We're entering this year. Who do you think is the best coach or one of the best coaches in the Big Ten? And I would put Matt Rule up there.
Well, no, look, I got to tell you, I don't remember the award.
If we're using Matt Rule, we're using Schiano. See? Now we're talking.
Schiano's not bad. Schiano's one of the.
But I don't remember conference champions for the most part. You mean why? Because he didn't beat Lincoln Riley? Is that why he was conference champions for the most part?
Well, they lost by 6, catching 5.5. So that's just as good.
No cover. Get this guy out of here.
Cover.
That's a bad job.
Let me ask you this. Who's done, out of the Big Ten, what coach has done more with less than what they do at Iowa?
Yeah, but I think some of it's problems created by themselves, no?
Yeah.
They're never going to out-recruit Michigan. They're never going to out-recruit Ohio State. Hell, they probably won't even out-recruit Michigan State. So, if we're talking about the best, you got to look at what Iowa does year after year without the same caliber of recruits that the big boys do in that conference.
I hear you. If I didn't feel like so much of it was self-inflicted, I would be more inclined. Where's Deshaun Foster, who I found out legitimately today was the head coach at UCLA? Where's he rank on this list?
OC. He's good. I tell you, great running back in the early part of the
head coach. Let's get it right. Assistant. And I don't know what that is, but he's an assistant to the assistant. So that's great. That's going to work well at UCLA.
I will say this, September 21st, UCLA in Baton Rouge. I already have it circled. Going to look phenomenal on the screen. Can't wait to DVR it.
Oh, it does. It will look good. What do you like in that game? You got a pick?
Probably over.
What do you make? What do you make the number?
I would make LSU probably about a 7.5, 8-point favorite, and I make the total 56.5.
Stop giving out the numbers you want it to be. That's not what it will be. LSU is going to be laying 14.5. That total is going to be 69.5, pal. We're trying to short the books. I can't believe we did the whole thing on Big Ten coaches.
It's unbelievable. Almost like the Gatorade. I love it.
It's ridiculous.
That's how it goes. You want to talk about not knowing what you're getting into. You talk about this shift here for Joe Ranieri. Thanks, Joe and Joe. We'll do some best bets on the other side.
Johnny's a 19-point lead late in the opening half, only to squander that lead. Hall ball under Shaheen Holloway coming all the way back.
All these guards start jacking up shots, and then Soriano doesn't get the ball. Hey, Rick, how about stop throwing your kids under the bus and get your big man the ball, your best player, play inside out like you were doing earlier in the game, and you probably would have won.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Just watched the final seconds of Illinois and Penn State, and by Dave's reaction, you think you know what happened there. How about that, Dave? How about that?
We're off the rundown. Sorry. Storm the court. You beat the 12th team in the country. That's fine. Second best in the Big Ten. That's fine. We are Penn State. Look at the crew jumping. This is so much fun.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
It felt during the year that there was a little bit of disconnect with Wilks and Kyle Shanahan.
The total points allowed by Steve Wilks' defense the last 3 years before this, head coach for the Cardinals, they gave up the 26th most points. Defensive coordinator for the Browns, 20th most points. And then Carolina, they gave up the 19th most points.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid. What a show. I mean, what a show. Game Time Decisions. Kevin Walsh with you. It is a Monday night. We've got a lot coming up. But we also have one in the door. Shout out RJ Davis. How about that? 21 first half points against Miami over the prop. You know what? Let's look for some first half cash in another college basketball game. And that would be from Jacoby Walter. Over 6.5 rebounds plus assists. Walter has missed this prop in 3 straight games. He has never missed it in 4 consecutive in his time with the Baylor Bears. And if you take a look in Big 12 play, 14 conference games, through the first 11, he was 8-3 over this number prior to the 3-game losing streak. 8-6 is obviously still a higher winning percentage, but he was dominating a number like this. This is way lower than we would have seen this number a few games ago. So I like this spot here for Jacoby Walter. Big time bounce back with a decent sized total as well in their matchup tonight against TCU. We go over the 6.5 rebounds plus assists. Elsewhere in the association, we're on Cam Thomas for 25 plus points, which pays out at plus 220. The prop is 20.5. If you want to play a safer bet, play the 20 plus instead of the 20.5. But in the 20 games where he has gone over 20.5 points, 17 of the 20, it's been 25 or more. And I think he's due for a good game tonight. He's not scored 20 plus in his last 3 matchups. And the last time that happened, he bounced back with a 25-point game. I think that's what you get tonight from Cam Thomas in their matchup with the Brooklyn Nets going against the Memphis Grizzlies. And lastly, give me Bam Adebayo over 37.5 points, rebounds, plus assists. 3 games this season where both Jimmy Butler and Tyler Hero were out that Bam Adebayo played in. In those games, he's averaging roughly 26, 13, and 6. It overall is 44 points, rebounds, and assists per game in those 3 prior games. No Jimmy Butler tonight, no Tyler Hero, but also no Terry Rozier, no Thomas Bryant, and a lot of workload for Bam on the road against the Sacramento Kings. That will do it for us tonight. Game Time Decisions. I'm Kevin Walsh. Coming up next will be In Game Live. Best of luck. Keep it right here on SportsGrid. I'll see you tomorrow.